Young man, do you want to succeed, to expand beyond your horizons? If you want to be free, then you must learn to master yourself, your thoughts, feelings, your body and spirit. Master your subjective consciousness. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction. The world outside of yourself is ruled by those who are not ruled by their base instincts. Young man, go forth into the world after this. Meditate, contemplate, then plan and execute an action towards success. Take a risk, break the rules, and be disciplined within self.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil lurking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode, another riveting episode of Case Closed, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. Highest level conversation on the most relevant topics in this space, ladies and gentlemen. As you come in, go ahead and click that like button, share the stream, because today we're going to be talking about something which is relevant to the times, relevant to the news. We're talking about immigration, competition, the marketplace. How does the individual react to this? And before I continue my monologue here, let's go ahead and recognize the all-star panel in the building. How's it going, LAR? How's it going?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you. You sound great. You sound like you got a nice mic out there in Texas. And we got Dr. Thunder. How's it going out there in the cold streets of Ohio? Or
it's all right. It's all right. It's actually not too bad in what is it? The groundhog didn't get scared by its shadow, so apparently we're supposed to have some warmer weather faster or something. I don't know. But I don't know. It seems like it might actually be holding. So we'll see.
And shout out to Kaizo. Kaizo, how are you doing?
I'm alive. I thank the Most High for life.
Yes, you actually got that sentence out. Yes, we thank the Most High for that as well. Now, this is going to be a conversation, ladies and gentlemen, trying to flesh out a couple of ideas here, right? Nothing too complex, but regardless. You heard that, Kaizo? It's not irregardless. It's regardless, Kaizo. Okay. So regardless of your macro stance on immigration,
actually, irregardless has actually been added to the dictionary
oh Jesus Christ,
because of a bunch of you
It-
dusty
it-
ninjas out here that
oh,
don't
I knew
know
it. There's
oh my
black
how to
God.
people.
speak.
And shout out to Mike V also. Shout out to Mike V. So regardless of your macro stance on immigration, right? Regardless of your understanding of what borders, language, and culture means as far as and how it should be assessed and controlled, the question of what the individual should do still needs to be addressed, right? The question still needs to be addressed. And I'm going to say this: there is no excuse to be outcompeted by illegal immigrants. Now I'm talking about an individual, okay? Let's put the macro side aside. We've talked about that. And obviously we can bring it in as to kind of highlight certain aspects, but we've had conversations on that as in the past, right? Things going on with Chicago and the mayor and all these other types of things, right? But there is no excuse to be outcompeted by an illegal immigrant, right? Dr. Thunder, you know the concept of the immigrant pluck, right? That, you know, migrants are selected for skill, industriousness, conscientiousness, and such. This doesn't necessarily apply to illegal immigrants, right? They're not selected for anything, not selected at all, right? So as an individual, the idea of more people coming in, right, to compete with you, yes, should give you pause as to how you might need to tighten your game up. But is there really an excuse, right? America is experiencing a high level of undocumented, unskilled workers. And here we're going to talk about how can Black men prevent this from uprooting their status in America? Because it's not just about, shall I say, skills and money and stuff like that. There's a kind of a status thing. And I contend that the status being fought for here is the status at the bottom. Like, you know, you're fighting for bottom status with dusty, non-select, non-industrious, non-conscientious, okay, and so on and so forth. But I just want to go around the panel here to kind of see what the feel as to what I just laid down is. We'll start with Kaizo. We'll kind of go like that in an anti-clockwise manner to Mike, and then LAR, and then Dr. Thunder, basically saying, look, there's no excuse to be outcompeted by illegal immigrants. There's no immigrant pluck here. And as an individual, okay, regardless of your macro stance, you cannot be using this as an excuse whatsoever. What are your thoughts, Kaizo?
Yes, illegal immigrants at this point shouldn't be posing a threat. Now, if you were yourself a first-generation immigrant, then perhaps that might make you pause a little bit. But generally speaking, you are Black American. You are someone who's lived in the country for several generations. You have way more advantages, right? Illegal immigrants can't get loans, for example, so easily. You can use that loan to better yourself, to add certain skills into your arsenal that will better your life within a very short exponential time period. So generally speaking, I think the only issue for illegal immigration is more of a race macro issue. But when it comes to micro, and again, the micro will actually build up to the macro anyways, I don't see how illegal immigrants should be posing a threat to you. You mentioned earlier, Ike, that yes, it should be something to make you think, okay, I have to tighten up my game. Maybe I need to go and finish that course I started, go out there, start looking for new clients for my business. Whatever it is, you should be doing it more, but you should not be worried about it if you do the right things.
All right. So, Mike, what are your thoughts? Kaizo is saying you should not be worried. A lot of people are actually saying the opposite. They're saying you should be worried, okay, that the money, for example, and I'm going to take a slight step to the macro side, and mention something which I generally know to be a fallacy. In other words, if money is not spent on X, it would necessarily be spent on Y. In other words, hey, here's some county money and federal money and city money being spent in illegal immigrant kind of facilities. If it wasn't spent there, then it would have been in my pocket, and then I'll be better off. That's not how budgets work. Dr. Thunder, you know that budgets are about priorities, not about actual money, right? But anyways, Mike, what are your thoughts about this? There's no excuse to be outcompeted by a non-select illegal immigrant.
Well, first I want to say that these are not illegal immigrants. These are asylum seekers. And so the way they got into the country is by applying for asylum. That's why they're here. and so they have the right to apply for that under the law. And so the question of them competing, folks who are U.S. citizens competing for jobs against asylum seekers, I don't see that happening. I don't think that at least folks in our space, in terms of Black people, are competing for jobs at that level. I think there is a fear that these asylum seekers would be potentially stealing their jobs. But if they don't speak English, I don't see how they can be stealing anything from a person who speaks English. You know, their roles and opportunities are going to be vastly different for that demographic of people. And so I don't think that that's going to be the case. And so I don't think a person has anything to worry about, especially if you live in a city that is properly run, that has a workforce development program offered to everybody who's low income. There's no excuse to be competing against asylum seekers or worker migrants who may be working at Tyson's Chicken, in the slaughterhouse, killing cows and for beef and whatnot, and stripping chickens of feathers and whatnot. I don't see how these two can be actually competing for the same roles.
All right. Good point there about the city you live in and the facilities or how it facilitates job placement and such. And if you happen to be in a particular jurisdiction where that's not sufficient, then perhaps you should focus your attentions to the degree to which that matters to you on the politicians that would create such, facility for you. LAR, stripping chicken feathers and picking strawberries. Why are you worried about that? Any excuse here to be worried about the asylum seekers not speaking English? Are they really an economic threat to you, Mr. Individual, whom we're talking to here? What are your thoughts, LAR?
In America, these things always become an economic threat. I mean, slavery was free labor. And then after slavery, Jim Crow, there was the quote unquote battle for labor, for cheap labor. And then you had, even the child labor. And then after that, unionization and people fighting against unions and kicking people out and hiring what you call scabs. You fast forward a little bit to this country saying, we can make a global economy. So let's have an American company go to a poor nation and pay them pennies on the dollar and then sell the goods back. So, and with the labor that people are concerned about probably is in America with illegal immigrants, asylum seekers, whatever you're both of them, is usually trades, because that's what has been hit the hardest, and that's what Black men get upset about is, now all of a sudden you're a plumber, you got undercut. You're an electrician, you got undercut. You're doing foundations, you got undercut. You concrete undercut, bricklaying undercut. Just any kind of roof and fence work, you get undercut. So that's one of the big issues. As far as most people having these corporate jobs, I get that the people in corporate America aren't necessarily worried about it. I get that. But also you got to take into consideration all of these illegal immigrants. And as you said, people with asylum, everybody ain't dumb and poor. You got some people with money and pretty skilled coming over here. So sometimes you're gonna have to roll up your sleeves.
Okay, so the roll up your sleeves part, and I just want just a quick sentence back on the pushback there. On my pushback, I want your response, and then we'll go to a shout out to you, Mr. Nagon, I believe.
Yes.
But LAR, real quick on that. You mentioned rolling up your sleeves, right? So the Rust Belt exists, right? Capital will always exercise to try to find advantage over labor, right? And it doesn't matter whether you're a white person somewhere in Michigan, that job will disappear if China is where capital thinks it'll get the most bang for its buck. and these things will happen. In other words, competition will happen, and hence you have to kind of level up your game. But the master electrician right now, or it could even just be an apprentice. Well, all he's got to do is look around, and you're saying, okay, the wages might be getting undercut. Well, he just needs to roll up his sleeve, as you said, as an individual, right? Now, I know, LAR, you don't like to talk about individuals, but is there anything wrong with what I just said? Hey, Mr. Electrician over there. Yes, these other guys are coming in. Yes, they can take a little bit less money, but that means, you got home field advantage. Your English is probably better. You need to be skilling up. You need to become a journeyman real quick. You need to next week or next couple of years. You need to have a couple of trucks with a couple of guys and start hiring these people. What's wrong with what I just said, LAR?
I would say this: cheap labor does not mean good labor, and we in America have a big issue with that. Like, hey man, if we can get somebody here to do it for a third of the price, man, let's go with it. And then you wind up paying full price because somebody got to fix the problem. That's the issue. Is you can't take a shortcut all the time. Not saying everybody who comes is unskilled, but or takes shortcuts. But I'm gonna say more times than not that's what you're gonna wind up getting. And the other thing I'm gonna say is, what's up, Nagon? It's been a minute.
Hey, LAR, how you doing, brother? How are you?
All right, Nagon. So, let's get your take, Nagon, and we're going to move on to Dr. Thunder here. And shout out to everybody coming in. Go ahead and click that like button, share the stream. We're talking about how to make sure that, prevent yourself from being uprooted status-wise, being outcompeted by people whom don't have certain advantages which you should have. And I'm saying, Nagon, there's no excuse to be outcompeted by, and I was corrected, non-select asylum seekers. Okay. What about that, Nagon?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm in New York. So as you know, we have a lot of asylum seekers coming into New York now, seeking asylum, and we have an issue with housing currently because we don't have enough places to house them, and the how would I say, a lot of the shelters and so forth are already kind of overrun and so forth. So there are issues going on. As far as what's really affecting Black people, it's not really affecting us. Average Black person makes, as we know from the figures, currently average wage earned for a Black person today, or a Black family, $50,000. When we start looking at, let's say, trades in these other places, you have to be in the unions, you have to be a citizen, you have to apprentice, you have to move up, through the ranks to become to be a fully certified apprentice electrician or plumber, or even the bricklayers union and like local 580 and the bricklayers union, DC9 and so forth, or painters and allied trades and so forth. So if you're really coming in and you're trying to get into those areas, you're going to have to be very much a citizen. I mean, I'm in the recruitment industry, so I do know you have to have your I-9s and everything else like that together. So that means you have to have, your citizenship papers. You do have to have your proper IDs and so forth. And yes, you do have to have proper language skills, because you're not really going to be able to get a decent job here in this country unless you do speak English. And you have to speak it, enough to where you can communicate and get your ideas across sufficiently and be able to write to some degree. You don't have to be very literate, but you have to have some literacy skills. And a lot of these people coming over don't have a lot of that. The most successful, I would say, immigrants we have coming over, Nigerians and so forth, many of them are coming over. They're coming through, the proper channels. They're trained well. They have families who are working together, pooling their dollars together, and they're doing quite well here. Those types of immigrants are the ones, the Nigerians and so forth, who are coming here legally. Those people are giving some Black Americans a bit more run for their money, because they're
we're the problem. Okay.
So I'm not gonna say you're the problem. They're coming in properly with the proper immigrant type of experience and they're getting the proper skills. You see very few Nigerians who really come here are not going to college, are not going to master's degree levels and so forth and going higher. And that's where, you of course, you're going to earn more and more and more money. So, that's the key issue there. Very much of this is very much of a political issue. So we do get that, the borders, and we definitely have to have secured borders, and we do have our laws that are in place currently, and we do have these people who are coming over, asylum seekers and refugees who are seeking refuge here in this country. So we do have that, and that's a part of what has helped to grow America. We do have that issue. Can we tighten up on that? Certainly, but it's a political football. I understand the politics behind it immensely. Like I've seen, like the last immigration bill and so forth come through, and how the Republicans blocked it and so forth, didn't want to support it and all that because of politics. So I get a lot of that. So that's going to be played with a lot more. But as far as Black Americans here in this country who are moving about productively, these people are not a risk. I'm just looking at line of MGTOW here. I just see where he says he makes more than 50K. Experience matters. Experience matters. I see him and others talk about how they're skilling up with their skill sets. Taking advantage of a lot of the IT courses and so forth that are available to them. Some don't even really cost you that much money at all, and that's out there for us. So we definitely have to continue to press and push that, of which many of us are doing. Others are not, but they want to make complaints about immigrants who are coming into this country who are not highly skilled, don't have a lot of resources whatsoever, and they're saying that these people are really much a threat to you. That's very much more of a political issue. I don't see anybody fighting to get into to come into Oxnard, California, and get into the strawberry fields where they're picking strawberries and where they're picking, bananas and so forth, and picking fruits there, working in those areas where you have a lot of workers who are coming in, and that's where the large corporate, farms are actually working and hiring these people left, right, and center.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see many Black people rushing in there to pick strawberries, and in a lot of other places as well. I remember Vicente, Vicente Fox of Mexico saying, "Hey, listen, a lot of Mexicans are coming in." This is when he was president of the country back maybe about 10 years or 15 years ago, somewhere in that time frame, where he was saying, "Hey, listen, we have a lot of Mexicans coming into the country. Let's admit, a lot of African Americans, so forth, that are in America are not fighting for the same jobs that these Mexicans are trying to get into," and they were definitely very much in those areas, domestic work and working very much in those fields. And a lot of them, of course, were illegal immigrants. But here we're dealing more with the refugee situation, and that's a little bit different. And is it really a tremendous risk to us? I don't see that at this stage. I don't see it, even though many are complaining about it and making a lot more out of it than it is. But there's my thesis, and I just wanted to lay that out to you.
Yeah, no problem. And we will come back to perhaps, you mentioned the issue with housing. In other words, and we're looking at things from an individual perspective. You mentioned the political aspects, and then you say housing, and then one might think, okay, this individual needs to pay rent, and he's saying, hey, this is messing up certain things with regards to that. But let's put a pin on that, right? That'd be one aspect of where the macro might affect the micro. But Dr. Thunder, okay, we're talking about bananas and strawberries and chicken feathers and all that good stuff. And you, the average Black man, are out there with your 50K, you're looking around and you're trying to skill up, and maybe you need to tighten up a little bit. Are these the guys that are your main competitors? What are your thoughts? What's your advice? What's your thoughts about what I said? I said it's no excuse. What do you think?
Yeah, no, they're not the main competitors. I do have to say, though, that nothing happens in a vacuum. So it's not as if this doesn't have an impact on, especially disproportionately on those that are on the bottom. It might not be the 50K brothers, but it could be brothers that, or lower down on the rung, as it were. So it has to have an impact. It's not a zero impact.
Dr. Don, let me ask you about this kind of impact which you're talking about, or my interpretation from the complaints that I've seen. It tends to be this kind of a, you guys are spending money over there and you guys have abandoned us, as in, yes, we have a list of complaints, or we have a list of, shall we say, demands, which we've been we've been talking with you. Let's say, I don't know, maybe it's the Democratic Party or whatever, your city council or whatever it might be, right? And you guys have this list of demands, and then all of a sudden you see this asylum seekers getting money, right, or getting facilities, getting whatever, and then you say, hey, how dare you do that? You're affecting us. And then there's that kind of replacement theory. There's several replacement theories. There's a small hats replacing the white people. That's not the one we're talking about. We're talking about the migrants replacing, African Americans. That comes in as well. So those kinds of things seem to be what people are pushing out there.
I think if you frame it,
go ahead.
I think if you frame it like migrants replacing, brothers, I don't think I think that's easy to dismiss that. So I do think it has to do with the way that this thing is framed. But when you talk about the overall tax base, especially when you bring folks in that when they get here, there is no employment, and they're being housed and they're being fed, and you have to do something with respect to screening to make sure if they're healthy and all of that kind of stuff. So that stuff's not free. Probably some food. There's a food budget, right? So that stuff is not free. Somebody's paying for that. So, so it's not an issue of zero impact. And also, I think it does create a security issue, because it's very hard to lock down on security. Now this is not exactly related, but it is somewhat related in the modern world. I mean, we have a lot of folks that are coming after us. And so if you're not even willing to lock down the sort of easy things, it seems that we probably don't have the resolve to do the hard things that are necessary to create security. I was watching what was this? What is it? What's the name of the country? It's in Europe. Why can't I think of Poland? And so I guess Representative Poland, or the Prime Minister of Poland, or whatever, the President of Poland, was under fire, and he said, "Look, we're fine if you think we're racist." He said, "We don't have any of these issues that y'all have." And yeah, you can be displeased with us because we don't let refugees in, but we also don't have the don't have a lot of the same the same issues. I'm an AT&T. That's my cell phone, is AT&T. And what was it, 2 days ago? Was it 2 days ago? I think it was Friday. No, Thursday. It was Thursday. Cell phone coverage was out, and now they're not saying why it was, but it's probably some kind of cyber attack, and so we're a target. So it seems to me that we have to do what's necessary to create security. So I think it's more of a security issue than it is that they're coming after, broke ninjas' jobs.
Good.
Yeah.
And again, that is the focus, because we did a couple of shows back, and repeatedly, this immigration topic comes up: borders, language, culture, security, securing the border. You agree that there's a security aspect there. Nagone mentioned that there are laws in the books that could be tightened up, better enforced, and whatnot. And I think that is well understood. Now let's drill down a little bit more here with regards to these certain opportunities. Okay, certain opportunities that are available. And I mean new things, emerging markets, things that are on the horizon. Nvidia stock shot through the roof. Okay, that means companies are buying chips to build up infrastructure for the upcoming AI boom. All right. And what you see right there in front of your screen shows that Nvidia stock went up about 15% on Thursday. Now, 15% is significant for one day. If you're not in the, for crypto, that's like nothing, right? It's like 40% here and there is no big deal if you're crypto trading, but 15% on one stock is huge. And what it amounted to basically was close to $250 billion in the market cap. In other words, the company increased in value in one day by $250 billion. And that puts it at number one of all time. So we see the other companies here listed, right? We see Meta and Apple and Amazon and, the usual people, that kind of hit that thing on different time. We have the dates in which they hit this huge market cap increase, that is, and market cap being basically here's the value of each stock times the number of all the stock that you have, which is basically a way of valuing a publicly traded company. They gained $250 billion in one day. And as I was mentioning, it's basically because, hey, all these people are not trying to buy GPUs. And let me just say here for a second, right? What is this Nvidia thing? And I'm sure people have heard of Nvidia, as it's not new, right? For those gamers out there, these are people who used to make, your graphics cards for your gaming PCs. And these, not to get too nerdy about it, they use a certain kind of matrix math, vector math, or pixel logic, as Kaizo likes to call it, for producing, 3D graphics. Now, just so it turns out that AI uses the same kind of vector math for arriving at its outcomes, right? So they were precisely well suited to kind of fit this AI kind of computing, AI compute. And these are not like regular chips. These are like 70-pound things that have 350,000 parts and are really complex, right? So it's not like just a regular chip, right? So these GPUs, companies are out there buying it. And what does, let me show you something here. Basically, what we see here in the light green or whatever that color is, that kind of ocean green or whatever, basically is data centers, right? Data centers are the ones that are putting in these demands. They're basically getting credit. They're saying, hey, I'm going to guarantee you a certain amount of orders for the next quarter. Hook me up, get me in your books. I'm going to buy this stuff, right? So data centers, A, are being built like mad, okay? B, they're getting this AI stuff to build the infrastructure to be ready, right? And I'm going to pose this particular indictment. It's not something that's new to anyone that's heard me before. I'm going to pose this indictment. I'm going to say this. What I just said, if I look all through Black YouTube, forget the manosphere, okay? I'm talking about Black YouTube. I'm talking about just looking for Black faces whom address these topics or any topics at all. And I don't find Black people talking about this type of stuff. Okay, it's like when certain people, like you, like if women were to say that crypto or some other kind of tech space is non-inclusive, but they're never in the chats or they're never in the rooms and they don't have any interest, right? Then how can you complain that something is not inclusive when you don't have interest? How can you complain that capitalism is not including you when you're not interested in capitalism, right? So that is my kind of indictment that I'm putting on the table that I want a kind of a reaction to. And I've noticed this thing. I've been looking to find. Shout out to Darius Dale. He's he's a Black dude, one of the few Black dudes out there that kind of talks macroeconomics and whatnot at a level, not at some dusty level. I'm not looking for dusties here. I'm talking about people who talk at that top class level. Black men are talking about entertainment for the most part. Why not capitalism? Kaiser, what's your reaction? And we'll go around again, around the horn again to Mr. I believe he's still here, right? Mr. Mike V, and around basically saying, look, we're going to get into what this particular opportunity represents, right? We're talking about Nvidia, we're talking about data centers, we're talking about AI, we're talking about certain opportunities, we're talking about the fact that you do not need school per se, degrees per se. We're talking about getting into technical sales and all these other kinds of opportunities for this person who's going to skill up, because illegal immigrants are not his problem. But my thing is, hey, Kaizo, where are the Black men that are talking about this? What do you have to say to chime into this indictment here? Am I being too harsh? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so Generally speaking, I think some black men, there's what's it called, something leisure, earn your leisure or something. It's, again, it's not high level sort of economics. It's more on edutainment kind of stuff. But I would like to say this. I think generally our people, and I mean like all African descendant people, we don't really like boring things. You can say nobody does, but other people kind of have a culture around it that actually allows it to actually be valued. So unfortunately for us, we value different things, and I think the things that we value just don't have a marketizable potential, or even if it does, we don't own the market aspect of things. For example, if you look at media, we don't really own distribution networks. We don't own YouTube. We don't own anything that can actually kind of allow us to reach the heights on it. Now, regarding this whole Nvidia thing, I think this is kind of interesting what's going on right now. What this means is that there's so many companies that are going to be actually increasing their potential, right? Because when Nvidia makes all these chips, they're going to be sold out, right? Because people know that there's going to be a chip shortage very soon. Everyone's trying to get into startups and all these things being utilized by Microsoft and all the other companies buying these chips. Now, if you look at this as well, if you look at countries like Ghana, there are companies that are mining there and have got certain mining licenses from the government, like Atlantic, which is actually technically related to the Tesla group. Meaning there is ways you can actually still try to invest, not directly linked to the actual stock of Nvidia necessarily, but all the other companies that will actually be providing Nvidia with the raw materials for their chips, as an example. Meaning, I think at the moment, black men have no excuse anymore to be out here talking about low-brow jobs and being outcompeted by illegal immigrants or asylum seekers, as some may call them. We should be able to be getting into these markets. We can't say, let me give you an example, right? This is more like a very personal example, but when I was young, I grew up in an African family. Education was the only way. Went up all the way to finish my PhD. That's fine. I saw the white kids who are technically less educated than me. Actually, no, they were less educated than me. They found these sort of, they found access pathways to like jobs in IT and tech at such an early age by getting into certain apprenticeships and other kind of stuff, working for telecommunication networks, making way more money than I did. I went into debt, etc. Or I guess what my point is, we no longer have that excuse, right? Our generation should be, especially if you claim you're from the Black manosphere, we should be conscious enough to see the opportunities and explore them. And the bar of entry is not that high, right? Most of these things either need a little bit of capital, or if you don't have that, you can actually get into the sectors, because some of them are tech, which you don't really need anything to get into. You don't need a degree. And some of them is tradesmanship. Go and get your certification, a little bit of money. You can get like a loan for $5,000. Go do a course and make your money.
Yeah, and shout out to one man went to Mo, and I'm gonna come for him for that crazy barrier to entry BS. But he says Wagwan with £2, more than $2, much appreciated. And then he hits us with £5, which is also more than $5, very much appreciated, sir. And say, well, everyone is, I'm assuming, yeah, everyone is interested in capitalism. Fact is, capitalism has a glass ceiling, a barter entry. Maybe it's that English stuff that has kind of gotten into your head or whatever, but F that, okay? You can go to community college to get this particular print, to get, you want to be an electrician, right? Before you finish the program, they're going to get you into a job placement. So you get an experience and apprenticeship as you're going through that. And community college is cheap, okay? Cheap per unit. I don't remember what it is now, but it was $11 per unit when I went to community college, okay? And by the time you get out of there, you get certifications. You get paid rather well, by the way. You get paid pretty well, and you can have the status to start your own business, okay? You then start leveraging other people's labor. Next thing you know, capitalism all the way, all day. Get a new truck, re-up on that. Learn your soft skills so that you can sell, become that CEO, that person that expands the market while leveraging other people's labor, and then you start leveraging capital. So I'm not buying this barrier or whatever, okay? So next we got Mike V. I'm saying, look, we're the black men that are talking about this. And Mike V might say, well, yeah, it's me. I'm the black man talking about it. But it's about a generality, right? I'm talking about that I don't see this stuff, right? I follow this stuff very closely. I follow all kinds of things very closely, but there's a dearth. Okay, that dearth meaning there's an absence of black faces when it comes to talking about the fact that Nvidia just got $250 billion in one day and blah blah blah. What's up with that, Mike?
Well, that's the ebbs and flows of the market. Nvidia, AMD, they make these sort of graphics chips and other sort of system on chip SoCs that many companies use. Microsoft uses it in an Xbox, and Sony uses it in the PlayStation. And largely, most of the time, these chips are sitting idle almost 90% of the time because they're not using it for gaming. Almost the portion of its life. And so when AI, generative AI, became a emerging thing, they found a place for it within the processing units that these chips function off of. And so these units are actually better served for generative AI and machine learning than they are for, let's say, for gaming, because gaming is exponential. You don't know. I mean, you can use 1 card, 2 card, 3 card, 4 cards, and you're still not going to hit all of the performance elements that you're looking for. And so, the market is profitable. It's a hot button item, and when it comes to where are black men in this area, well, you just have to look no further than these anti-DEI policies that have largely kept black people, and specifically black men, from participating in the tech industry. As it stands right now, less than 12% of the information technology industry, it comprises of black people, and that number has not budged since George Floyd in the Derek Chauvin case, with all these corporations on LinkedIn making these pledges to actually propose, support for DEI initiatives, when in reality, all of those roles have been reversed. We know now with the tech layoffs, the first people that were fired were the last ones to be hired, and that happened to be black men in these industries, especially the DEI officers in these industries. And so, to your question as to where are black men in these areas, largely it's not that black men are not there because they don't want to be. It's a lot of the time that the industry is not favorable or hospitable to black people in general, but black men in particular. I'm in the industry of cybersecurity. I've been in the IT industry for 20 years now, and I can tell you that the industry is not very favorable to black male leadership and black male participation as a whole, and which is why you don't really see too much of them there, unless it's at the government level or the federal level. I think from a private sector level, you definitely don't see as many black men as you should, primarily because we're just not we're just not being selected at that level. And so you say the industry is $250 billion in terms of Nvidia. That's good and all, but where are the opportunities going to come from? We know that from a startup perspective, for 2023, less than 1% of the $270 billion in venture capital went to black people, in the startup sector. And so what are we really talking about here? We've been largely shut out from the sector. There's a lot of redlining, and there's a lot of anti-DEI legislation and proposals being put together to further marginalize black people from the sector, and especially black men.
Mike V, 2 points, one of which you could easily anticipate, which is about you, right? And then the other one I'm going to start with first. And the other one is, you know what? Let me start with the one about you first. Okay, you're in the space, right? And we're talking about individuals now, right? So, and the second point I'm going to ask you is about this interest thing. And it could be a chicken or the egg. You can say, well, black men are not interested in this because there's a barrier, and that's why I don't see any black people talking about this type of stuff, right? But you're there, right? What is keeping you there? Why are they not kicking you out? What the hell? What's up with that? And what would you tell an individual regarding? So you're going to tell somebody else that's trying to be a Mike V, don't come over here. They don't want you over here. Help us understand what's going on with that.
It's a supply and demand thing. I think in the security industry, I think it's still hot demand, but the problem here is it's going to cool off at some point. And why I'm still here is because they need me. They can't just get rid of me that easily. And so in the tech industry, you don't really want to dump people unless you actually have to fire them or lay them off, because it takes a long time to build teams up, because you have to cultivate people, and then you have to train people, and it's a lot of investment into it, and no one really wants to do that unless they actually have to. And so it's difficult to just lay people off in the industry. And so I think largely I have dodged a lot of bullets, primarily because I'm in a very specific sector that's in demand. But when it comes to other Black men in the industry, I see them a lot. I just came from Kenya just last week, and what I have found is that there are a lot of Black men who are taking the entrepreneurship role, where they're starting their own, launching their own companies and getting into the industry that way. Now, are they going to make a lot of money off the jump? No, but that takes time, and you got to go through angel investing, seed funding, Series A, Series B, Series C, etc., before you reach that, that specific goal of being, evenly yoked in your income and stability. And so it's not an easy place for Black people to be, especially Black men. And so I think that to your question, I'm in a very specific role, so I don't necessarily have to worry too much. I'm still in hot demand right now, so I don't really worry too much about it. But most people change their careers at least 3 times in their life, and so if I need to pivot, I can definitely pivot.
Okay. So let me ask LAR. The basic question here is, where is the interest? I don't see the interest, right? I don't, not only, and I like to talk about, well, I don't see them in calculus class either. And what's the barrier to entering calculus class? You just gotta sweat a little bit and get in there, right? I wasn't thinking about black, white, or the other when I went and did those trigonometry classes in community college, and then qualified and went into Cal Poly to do the calculus classes and all those other kinds of things. But my main point, or the main point about the kind of data point about the interest here, is with regards to just YouTube or wherever else people are talking about stuff, right? And when you want to talk about this stuff, whether it's from the venture capital end or wherever you want to talk about business, capitalism, finance, money, doing stuff, you just don't see black men there, but they're all over the entertainment place. So it's like, I'm like, well, how can you say this thing is not working for you when you don't seem to be interested? So LAR, what do you have to say about this? Am I crazy? Am I just being harsh? Am I just, doing the crazy Nigerian shit, throwing out cuss words here, calling, whatever? What are your thoughts about what I just said?
It's a part of American history. That's all it is. It's just a different form of it. My question sometimes is, what do people expect? And what I mean is this: pretty much everything in America, when it comes to Black Americans, there's been this "you can't be here" thing, "get out of here" thing. So when you say I don't see Black people in this and I don't see Black people in that, where does that really start? Where did it actually start? It started in school. It started in school when kids wanted to go in certain subjects in school, and the teachers and the counselors and the principals was like, no. That's where it started. So what happens over time, you get less and less people doing certain things. That's just a natural progression. So now when people go, I don't see Black people here, I don't see Black people there, guess what? Since we play the entertainment thing, let's try this one. It's the same thing in baseball. You don't see Black people in baseball. You know why? Because we don't want you here. You got to go. We can't be in this league. Y'all can't be here. Nobody's going to play against you. It's the same exact premise. So what happens is people just wake up one day and act like everything that happened, I can even say in the last 30 years, doesn't exist. All that matters is I don't see you where I want to see you right now. So that's the country we live in. And ironically, let me rewind this. Let's use entertainment in this sense. When a brother created the video game system, you ain't really seen Black people in video games ever since, unless they was on the cover of EA Sports. So that's tech. The brother who basically helped the cell phone or built the cell phone. You haven't heard anything else about other people with the cell phones. That's tech. That's science. What happened? The brother that made the Super Soaker who worked for NASA, I'm sure he could have made a lot of other things.
Dr. Lonnie Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. He could have made a lot of other things, but guess what? Even when he made that, they had to advertise it like he wasn't black, because this is America. Like, this is when you see things happen systematically for decades or sometimes centuries, why this expectation that every rule is going to get broken? As a matter of fact, Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about this. They asked him, why aren't there any more people like you? He's like, well, when I was in school, they were making sure people didn't go in that route. They were discouraging us. They were sabotaging us. He just happened to be the one that just kept going all the way. He was like, you think I'm the only person that ever thought like this? No, I'm just a person who went through all the obstacles to get where I'm at now. That's the thing that people just somehow just skip over. But I'm gonna leave it at that.
All right. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to IC3, Bob, One My Mentor Mo, again for the super chats and whatnot, for the contributions. Lively conversation going on there. And we're talking about specifically now the opportunities within tech, the opportunities for self-betterment, right? With regards to individuals and this competitive landscape. The landscape is competitive and it's getting even more and more global. And at this point, as we pivot over now to Nagon before we get back to Dr. Thunder, I'm saying, look, there doesn't seem to even be an interest in quote unquote capitalism, right, of a particular sort, the entrepreneurial type, the type that requires you to know about market cap. It's a different kind of cap that they be capping out here, these brothers, right? So it's not about market cap. And there's a chicken and egg question I would admit with regards to what LAR and Mike said, which is, hey, there's barriers to entry, there's sharp elbows, so why would we be interested when they don't want us to be there, right? Nagon, what is your thought about it? I'm like, I'm still not buying it. Well, let me not say I'm not buying it. I understand the historical aspect. What I'm saying is, standing here today, talking to individuals, I want to see more black men talking about this crap, right? I want them to be interested in it, whether or not somebody said that they can't do it or not. I want them to get into this. What is the market cap? What is a business? What is the seed funding and Series A, Series B, Series C when it comes to venture capital that Mike V was referring to? What are these things, and how do I start playing this game, right? I want to see more of that. Nagon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, would like to talk more about it, get more into it. I know here, just in this space, certainly with the Black Brain Trust and a few other channels that were out here, we would have these conversations, and a lot of people would say they were bored with it, they didn't like it, we didn't talk this or talk that. So you had a lot of people who kind of have no interest. The younger folks that we talk with have a lot more interest, but yes, we certainly don't have as many that we need to have out here talking about this. I would agree. So you're not going to get any pushback from me or anyone who has any pushback for that. You're not going to get that from me. Certainly, since I am in the tech industry, I certainly do hiring and so forth for companies as a contractor, and I've worked for some of the biggest companies, Meta, certainly worked for Amazon, and contracted actually with a very large electronic automobile startup and so forth. So I'm definitely in the industry. I see what's going on, and from a tech side, the reality is we don't have enough people getting into the tech. We do have more getting into it, not enough, and there are definitely some barriers to entry. There are not enough people like me in certain places where we can help to hire and bring a lot of people in, because the company I work that I'm contracting with now, I play a role certainly in helping to bring a lot of developers and systems architects, and definitely some cybersecurity people and so forth in. But I'm one of the few, so I don't have a lot, and then I have gotten pushback inside my own company from other white guys trying to reduce some of our staff people. In fact, I had one a while back try to actually get rid of one of one of the young black developers I had just happened to be a woman as well, and tried to get rid of her. I almost tried to step over my head to do it. Absolutely insane. But yeah, there was no but there was no doubt there's no doubt there's some issues. And then talking about market valuations and so forth, and becoming sophisticated to how this market works, we have to push more about it. But we don't have many brothers really talking about it. And to be quite frank with you, we have less brothers into it. But I do see more brothers getting into financials from a crypto standpoint and all that. So we do see some people talking more about financing, but we more about this capitalism and so forth. But we really have to push more of that. We definitely have to do that. But are there barriers to entry? And I think that's a key question. Are there barriers to entry? And I would have to say unequivocally, yes. And we certainly know that from Silicon Valley, where we have a very small number of black people. Let's put it like this. Okay, I got into Meta and Facebook. They bought me as a contractor pretty quickly, and I was with them for a good while, which was a nice run as a contractor. I wasn't looking to go with them full time. I could have been there that way, but hey, Facebook, we're big on social media. We're big in these areas. We should be scaling much higher there as far as people who are working for those companies, but we're at 1% to 2% of staff, and no doubt, it's LIFO, last in, first out. So we do have that when layoffs come, and we've seen a few layoffs happen in this industry, and I think we're going to go through some hiring again. I would say in the second to fourth quarter, we should see a bit more in the industry, but as I said, we definitely have resistance to us. There is. I'm there, and I've gotten resistance. I'm lucky in the sense where I was a black guy who was able to come into a company where it was like no white man need apply, which was exceedingly rare in this industry, exceedingly rare. But I may be one of the few. I don't know how many others have had that type of situation go on, and was met with a lot of resistance as well. So there is there are issues. There are barriers to entry. I know we don't like to talk about that, but that's something that we've gone over in the Brain Trust quite a bit. We've spoken about that and again gone into some detail and broke a lot of this down didactically, literally from staffing to financing and the whole deal. I think Mike had mentioned that earlier. So there are issues. Are those excuses enough to say, well, those are excuses and we shouldn't? No, they're not excuses. They're just realities. Can we push harder out there? Yes, certainly. If you are skilled with quite a bit of, if you've got the skill sets, if you're a strong developer, strong systems architect, systems engineer, if you're an engineer and so forth, you have good skills, you're going to make it. So we definitely need to consistently skill up. We definitely should be getting a lot more sharper on the capitalism side, but tough about capitalism. You need capital. And if you're not getting the angel funding and so forth, if you're not getting the funding to get in here and to be more entrepreneurial against your competition, you're going to have some issues. 30% of the people who come into venture capital, to get venture capital funding, 30% of them are white males. They get 90 or over 90% of the monies. Over 90%. We're blacks, and others are getting less than 5% and less. How is this? How does this exist? How is this existing? 30% of the population in this tech industry are getting 90% of the dollars. That's a very real thing. So we have to, you have to talk about that realistically. You have to look at that and what that really means as well. So yeah, there definitely is some resistance to you. There definitely is that, and that's all across the board, from Wall Street to Silicon Valley. So
Okay.
I'm just gonna leave it there. But that's just a general thumbnail sketch of kind of what is going on, and I know there are a lot of people who have a lot of different ideas how to how to get around this, but we're going to have to really work together very hard and pressure the industry very much to change that. But that's a slightly different conversation. But I'm just giving you a little idea as to what's going on there. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes. Shout out to you. We're trying to see more Nagones, more Mike V's out there in these spaces. And also there is the macro aspect of as well. And I think that the macro aspect is definitely not going to change until the interest aspect changes, because even if you're not going to move that macro needle, some people don't even know what the issue is. In other words, they don't even, if you don't know that there's this thing called venture capital, this thing called tech, or this thing called companies and market cap and all these other types of things and valuations and blah, 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 then you don't even know the things you're not being kept out of, right? Shout out to IC3. You don't even know you're in a prison, right? The first step should be at least knowing that you're in a prison. Then you might at least try to plan a prison break. Now, not a lot of people break out, right? I get it. So when we're talking about individuals and those that might be skilled enough to be able to break out of the prison, I find that rather interesting. That's why and for the purpose of this show, we're talking about individuals as well, but it's not going to solve the macro thing. Not everybody's just going to bust out of the prison. You're going to need somehow to take down that whole prison complex some other way. But if you're not even interested in the fact that there's a prison and you don't even know, then I think that that's an issue. So Dr. Thunder, with regards to the interest aspect, and Nagone just mentioned boring. Right? He said, hey, that they said when they're talking about it, it's boring. Kaizo started out with the boring fact too, saying it's boring, right? So what are your thoughts about this? I don't see the interest, and I think that the interest is very important before you get to the fact of not even being in there or then getting the capital. The capital is like at the peak there. But if you're not even interested, what's going on? Do we want people to be more interested, or is there some other path that we should be looking down out here? I think we want people to be more interested. What are your thoughts, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, success is boring. Success of all kinds is boring. Discipline is boring. All the stuff that actually sort of matters is boring at some level, right? So, the idea of delayed gratification, that's boring. And it's hard. It's hard to do, and it's boring. So that can't be the only reason. I mean, it shouldn't even be a primary reason why people don't do what they should do. Yeah, there's barriers to entry. I'd say a primary barrier to entry is the lack of sort of good aspects of tribalism that other groups enjoy. If they are disproportionately represented, then more people that look like them are going to end up in the group. That's how that works. This idea of being fruitful and multiplying, you're multiplying sort of ideology in other people that look like you, came from similar situation as you did. You just know more about them. And so the tendency is for you to attempt to bring more of those kinds of folks in there. This is one of the reasons why it's critical when Black men get a foothold. They must pry that door open and must be willing to put themselves at risk somewhat, because they are so, aggressively biasing towards their own. I mean, that's the only way that this works. When you're the minority, you have to be even more aggressive. But of course, the problem with that is, unless you have some sort of ironclad job security, I don't know if you're in sales and you're producing 50% of the company's sales or something, then you can do that. But if you're, if you're a dusty ninja just coming in the door, obviously you can't do that. So it's very tricky and challenging. Now, to some points that were being made about DEI and some sort of anti-DEI folks. Yeah, the conservatives, they have been very, very strategic, and they've done the boring work to wait and for the right point in time to go on a, on an attack mission, you know, against DEI, and pretty soon there will be no DEI. If what is happening right now continues, it won't exist anymore. In my own career,
Definitely no affirmative action for schools, Supreme Court, blah blah blah. Anyway, go ahead.
and I'll say in my own experience, and also looking at the numbers, who has actually benefited from DEI, it's black men, in particular, straight black men, have not benefited nearly as much as other groups have. So that are represented in the sort of intersectional business. Black women have done, you know, a lot better than black men have in that respect. And of course, we'll see if there really is a black girl magic, or if a sort of disproportionate support has played a role in them being disproportionately represented in certain kinds of positions, in academia, for instance. You know, folks that are, you know, even chairing a lot of these DEI programs, departments, they're not even aware of thoroughly of the statistics associated with black men, you know, and how few black men are actually being supported by these programs. They themselves are not aware of it. You know, I've asked direct questions to multiple folks that, you know, had the title, and they just are not aware. They just don't know. So they're not so DEI hasn't really been pushing for, especially the straight black man anyway. And then you have on top of that, what little support straight black men were getting from DEI. Of course, that's being targeted also. So yeah. So it's like, once you get in, you have to pry the door open, and you have to be willing to basically take some slings and arrows, you know, for your, for your goodwill. And that's pretty much what it is. And there's a reason why there's a limited number of people that are willing to do that, you know, because it puts you at jeopardy, and you get in there and you have a family to take care of also. And even in academia, when tenure is a factor, I'm tenured, but they have ways of disincentivizing and marginalizing opportunities in other ways that other academics are able to take advantage of, and, you know, blackballing you and all this kind of stuff. They have ways of doing that, and pushing you out, you know, of certain kinds of opportunities that others have, you know, access to. They have a way to do that. So it's challenging from that perspective also, even when you have all the statistics on your side. The statistics show clearly that certain groups are being marginalized, and you make those arguments. You can clearly make those arguments, but if you go after it too aggressively, then, you know, especially at PWIs, then, you know, now you're racist, you know. So it's really you can't win for losing.
Can't win for losing. Mr. IC3, how's your microphone? You're joining us.
1, 2. Can you hear me?
Yeah, let me finish by saying this too. My thought on all of this stuff is, really, you have to focus on what it is that you can do. You have to focus on what you as an individual can do, as far as getting the skills necessary, putting yourself in the best position to take advantage of whatever changes are going to occur in the market. You know, I'm a tech guy myself. You know, I'm a musician, but I'm a technology guy. So I know all of the technology, and I know where stuff is going. So for instance, when the pandemic happened, I was already set up to do whatever virtual stuff that I had to do. No big deal. But a lot of academics, I mean, that was like, you know, was like a death nail. I mean, they had to totally relearn everything because they had no understanding, and that's a sort of I mean, that's a a version of sort of an example of what it is that I'm talking about. So anyhow.
So Mr. IC3, Mr. IC3, Mr. IC3.
Yeah, thank you for letting me on. It's really been an interesting conversation. I'd like to pick up on a few words.
No, Mr. IC3. That's not how this works over here. Okay, over here on this side of order, you can go try. You can do that chaos thing over on Kaizo's side, but I do the question asking over here. And yes,
Okay,
then you can pick up on a couple of things that you want to pick up on along the way. But I want to kind of direct your focus on this aspect of is ignorance an excuse? Even if you believe that there's so much that there's barriers, that this thing called capitalism is against you, that there's a prison, blah blah blah. But then do you just focus and then you just focus on gossip 24/7? Do you just focus on other things, on entertainment, on whatever 24/7, and not really actually focus on the problem, or not even the problem, but understanding the system itself? Because trust me, even if you break out of this particular barrier, it's the same kind of the engine of the economy is a human emergent system, right? The aspect that we have to trade with each other and value for value, that's never going to go away, whether you're in Babylon or in the United States. So understanding that and how it works, I find to be lacking. And maybe you can agree or disagree that, hey, do you find it to be lacking, generally speaking, within Black spaces, that there's not a general interest in these types of things in terms of how markets work, how global capital works and all that kind of stuff? And is it an excuse? And then you can pick up on the other things you wanted to pick up on. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. You said the statement, there's no excuse. Okay. I'm saying there is an excuse depending on how you see the market and your concept of the market. So in the context of what you're saying, the individual going into a market is the same thing as going into a house, right? So if you're going into that house and you've believed the propaganda on the outside of the building or of this entity, that if you go into this house, this market, that if you work hard and if you're clever, then you can progress in this market or in this house, depending on how much energy and how much effort you want to put into making progress within the market and being a success within the market, within the house. I'm saying that the market, a lot of people think market is just a flat playing field. I'm saying the market is the same thing as a house. It's so when you talk about barriers to entry, it's the same thing. Are you invited into this market? Is there has a door been opened for you to enter this house? And then how will you be treated when you get into the house? So all markets are the same things as houses. So when you're entering that market or entering that house, you're entering either as an individual or as a group of people, a gang or an organization, and you're entering that market. So the word interest, right? Interest and boring. Black people find it too boring. You see, entering that house, that market, you can have hope that, hey, it's even, and there's no bias, there's no racism there. Or you can realize, you know what, this house, this market is racist. I've got to go in there, bite the bullet, and keep my nose down, and with a plan of building my own house, of building my own market by extracting those things that I need from this house, from this market, because I realize that this market, this house is against me. So rather than whinge, I'm going to see, after entering it, to get certain resources, and then my ultimate goal is to build my own house, to build my own market. So the whole idea of getting bored or losing interest is because you're realizing the limitations that you're in, and you're not thinking about getting outside, doing something alternative, whether you're an individual or a group.
Can I respond?
Yes, you
Yeah.
can respond. And also, by the way, so you're basically, I think it's a salient point that you're making regarding you see something as insurmountable, right? Maybe they have perceived the racism in that house, and rather than you perceive the racism, you see the great task to be done, and you go in there with interest, right? And because you know you're going to build your own house, but others just
That's right.
die down and say, "Oh, it's a boring house anyway." They do the whole sour grapes, for those who know that particular fable, right? I don't want to do that. That's lame anyways. That's for white people, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not for white people. You live in an economic planet. No matter whom is running it, right? No matter what form it takes, the mastery is mastery, and being a dusty is being a dusty. Value is value, and not having value is not. So you have to understand how value flows and all that other kind of stuff. But what did you want to chime in there, Kaizo? After all, you were next in the line.
Yeah, I mean, you see, that's how you do it, guys. You can't be out here making excuses. Go out there and ask for your time, right? You don't wait for the man to give you space. But yeah. So a response to previous comments as well as IC3. Um, there's a few issues with some analysis here of there being some kind of glass ceiling, or whatever ceiling it's made of, right? Actually, glass is a good one because it's Silicon Valley and all that stuff. But anyways, Miss IC3, here's the issue with your analogy, right? Sure, racism and all that, everything exists, right? But what do you think the white man is fighting? The white man is fighting an unknown. So if you compare your fight against racism, I think racism is a much more known enemy than the unknown, right? The white man is putting his money, his efforts into something that is even more unsurmountable than racism, because he actually doesn't know. He's out here breaking the bars of of science, right? Going to space on a calculator, going to the moon, landing on it on a calculator, when we modern day people have smartphones in our pockets and stuff. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I still find all these excuses, because it's almost like we assume that Dwight Man has no challenges himself. So if he can do it, right, and he's actually dealing with the unknown, right, and chaos, we're just dealing with a known enemy, I think we're definitely taking an L.
What do you have to say about IC3, about that IC3? And then I'm gonna throw out a new kind of a topic here for Mike V to start on. What do you so that it's clear to everyone, right? So we have a defined enemy in that house. We both the construct of the house itself, the door, the gates, and whatever chains you're being locked up in, in the basement that you're being kept in. These things are defined, and Kaizo is saying, "Hey, that's an easy battle. It's defined, right?" This other guy here who built the house, he's out there in the wilderness, battling nature, battling the odds, battling, the laws of nature and trying to figure it out in science and whatnot, right? So there is no excuse. You have an easy fight. What do you say, IC3?
Yeah, I'm saying that battle he has is actually the conservation of the house, of the market, of the structure that he has built, and also the improvement of it. So that house, the house itself, is built is in the universe of chaos. So the chaos is out there. So chaos, you have to bring order. The order out of chaos is the same thing of the construction of a house within the chaos, the construction of a market within the chaos. So if you're trying to get into his house, his market, right, then all your energy is being spent in that way. But also you could be in that market and then planning, throwing out those elements that you need to construct your own house up against chaos. So yes, it's true. We're still having to face chaos. So it's just like you could be working for a company and you're getting a good salary, and then you think, oh, you know what? I could be make the skills I have. I could be making a lot more money if I started my own business. Yes, and so the feeling of jumping from working for somebody to starting your own business, it's a bit more feeling like you're moving into chaos. You're moving into the unknown. Yes, and then another jump is like moving from this market, this house, and creating a new market. I don't know if market maker is the right term. Total, the creation of a new market, and it's new and chaos completely. So it's the same jump.
Yes. I understood. I like it. Not to comment too much on the particularly abstract, conceptual, and esoteric kind of direction there, but yes, even that man you're fighting against, Kaizo, does have an element of chaos within him. It's not just purely defined, and also the task that IC3 has defined for himself regarding creating his own market is also a fight. So he's standing up to it. He says no excuse, Kaizo, no excuse. Now I want to get into a particular line. I'm going to start with you, Kaiser, and then go to Mike V. And this is again about opportunities, right? And specific advice for the individual that needs to get into that house and do some work that needs to be done, regardless of all the barriers and whatnot. One of the things that came to mind was Dr. Thunder mentioned sales, and also I'm kind of in the field of technical sales. If you're a tech entrepreneur of any kind, yes, you're in technical sales, but technical sales is something that I got into even before. It was kind of in line with me starting my company. But basically, what I'm saying is this: okay, besides going out there and using AI to help you learn to code and other kinds of things, and things where there's a lower barrier to entry regarding getting certifications to get into tech and whatnot, and climbing your way through there, and maybe you end up being like a Mike V, and you're in a particular industry and you have skill and talent, and maybe Mike V's been a little humble, but the reason they're not getting rid of him is because he's good at what he does, right? That's got to be a huge part of it, right? So technical sales is one aspect where if you got people out here, these brothers always talking about game, right? You can use your game, as opposed to using your game to get wrapped up in child support. No shade to child support brothers, but as opposed to getting wrapped up in child support, you can use your game with a little bit of technical prowess. You don't have to be, you just have to know the industry you're in, right? Whether you're selling, the people who sell medical equipment, for example, that's not necessarily quote unquote tech, but I'm just using that as an example to say that those people are not doctors or dentists, but they sell medical equipment, right? And in this whole world where we're looking at these data centers who are buying all these chips, the data centers are getting built. Okay, it happens to be an industry that I'm in from the structural engineering side of things. Okay, you have all kinds of people in there with billions of dollars that are being moved around, with data center after data center after data center being built all over the West Coast. In my particular case, where the skill of technical sales, whereby you have all these vendors supplying all kinds of things, from whether it be the freaking tools and the nails and the lasers and this is and that's that the electricians or the mechanical people or the building construction people are going to use, or for the running of the data center itself. Technical sales can get you a lot of money selling technical stuff, and it is in that particular area where you have a lot of, you can build a moat around yourself, because if you're bringing in money, I don't think they care too much whether you're black, right? And then and then you're not even in the office. That way they don't have to see your black face, right? You just kick him out there as long as he's making money, blah blah blah. But anyways, I say that to say this, Kaizo, can you start giving us a little bit? And I know this might be a task, right, to kind of consolidate here a few ideas regarding an individual who wants to expand upon or take advantage of what we're looking at here in the chart. Take advantage of this new emerging market that's going to happen. People are buying these chips because to build an infrastructure for the application layer has not even happened yet. We don't really have a real AI application. Right now, we just have some toys like ChatGPT and stuff like that. Okay. But this is a new area that's coming out. Forget also, there's also the area of augmented reality. There's the area of Neuralink, right? All these other things. So you go out there, find one or two, give us a point or two, and then we'll move to Mike V and on.
Okay, so yeah, good question. I think people should know that there is different aspects. I mean, they already know this, but they should focus on the fact that there's different ways you can get into a market, right? As you said, Ike, you're in technical sales. Other people are into the actual programming. Some people are into the management of companies. Different skills basically make up different sectors. You don't have to be the techie, the literal nerd in your grandparents' mud hut, right? Coding, being a passport bro. You don't have to do that specific aspect that exists. However, there's different roles that people can actually get into. Now, what I would like to say here is this, right? Right now, we're on the advent of a change in what I call the hardware revolution. Now, previously we had a lot of software stuff, right? And that was mostly because the hardware kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but it reached a point whereby now we're dealing with quantum mechanics. So getting smaller than what we have for microchips is going to be very difficult. However, what that means is there is new tech, again, still hardware. It's not about size. It's not about functionality like Neuralink, right? FDA has just approved some human trials for Neuralink. I mean, this is going to change how everything is done. We're talking about having a chip that is connected to a computer in your brain. And you have certain access to do things, right? It can be access through, binary code, and that will improve across time to a point whereby it will be seamless. What I'm trying to say is if we have that technology already almost at market in the next maybe 10 years or so, we got also this AR, augmented reality stuff that's been coming out. Apple Vision stuff kind of really pushed it and made it more mainstream, at least on the tech side. You've got the virtual reality. You basically got all these techs coming together. Black men should be looking into how they can actually take advantage. As I mentioned, you don't have to be the literal person coding. You don't, but if you want to, there is definitely very clear, streamlined examples of how you can get into these fields. You can literally go and study specific programming languages if you want to be the tech person. Java, Python, for example, these are great languages for AI. Any Python and RR, right? And you can learn the frameworks for things like Java for the AR stuff, right? So you can actually get to basically have the advantage by having the first movers advantage by having the skills required here. All I can say is if we miss this opportunity, we've got no one else to blame. We can't say that they don't want us there, because as I mentioned earlier, and I think you mentioned as well, other people in the panel, we can create the jobs in this market. Yes, we're going to have, I think it's good that what Mike V and Nagone mentioned earlier, that it is going to be difficult for certain people, perhaps Black people, to get certain capital investment in their companies for whatever reasons. That's fine. But even if that's the case, we don't have to be the literal person that is, we don't have to be a fully Black-faced company. You can diversify it. You can make sure you have, there's strategies to actually basically have people to show themselves in your company, and you can try to leverage that. Point is, we don't have to rely on only one path into these markets. We can definitely figure out how to get into it. And I say, with all these new emerging markets, learn your trade skills, learn how to be an electrician, a plumber. All these roles are going to be needed. Like, for example, as Ak mentioned about the data centers, population of humans is growing high. Population of more online, or rather computer-based jobs, is increasing exponentially. If that's the case, you need to be able to understand that all this is very much just opportunities. So I say, yeah, go there, look into Neuralink, look into all these fields, look into investing as stocks if you want, look into actually seeing how you can get into the field. There's technical sales, there is the actual technology aspect of coding. There's also the hardware aspect. So you'll need to learn some kind of mechatronics, whatever it is that you need to get into these fields, learn it. And what we'll do is be able to leverage this into macroeconomics. But I will say this, right? I don't necessarily believe that Black people will get this, because I believe we have a low trust society and we don't like to support each other. But micro-wise, it's possible.
All right. Thanks for dropping the bomb there at the end. Also, low trust society. It's not going to happen in the macro picture. Okay, micro-wise, it's a good thing. You mentioned good point about the data centers. As a matter of fact, as offices reduce, as more computers and networks are required, because people are kind of working on their own. Forget also the fact that AI needs to be kind of leveled up with regards to data centers and whatnot. So within that particular area of data centers, yes, there's going to be a lot of that. Mike V mentioned Kenya. So emerging markets come to mind, and the problems to be solved within those emerging markets, which tend to take more of a technological, in other words, M-Pesa, for example, and general, solving the problem of the unbanked, as it's called, right? took a very different face or different aspect, if you will, in the third world than it did over in the first world. There tends to be a jump that happens in the third world. In other words, if America, or if the first world, if you will, to use those terms, kind of digs copper into the ground in order to do the telephony thing, Africa doesn't do that, doesn't or didn't have to do that. They went straight to cell phones. If there's a question of people, having access to finance and whatnot, Africa skipped the whole banking aspect and went straight to all this kind of mobile banking, of which they have 10,000 different ways, of which this represent opportunities for you to be able to do that with the capital that you have access to, more so than the person over there in the third world. But finish up, Kaiser, real quick, and so we can move on.
Yeah, actually, you're making really great points, and I think here again, if you do want to make money, you do have to have that entrepreneurial spirit. And a simple example here is if you look at the African market right now in Kenya, there's Microsoft and other sort of companies already established here, right? Hiring Kenyan engineers, etc. Point is, right? If as a Black American, right, as a Black American man who is perhaps you are going to be better suited at leveraging these companies in whichever way to actually let you sort of set up shop in these other countries. I mean, you have the face logic leverage. So I think opportunities are there. You just have to think outside of the box and be willing to take the risk.
All right. So, Mike V. And by the way, Mr. IC3, I'm not talking about the highest levels. I'm talking about some Dusty out there becoming a technical salesperson so he can pull in $250,000 a year and, at least better his life a little bit. And he might not even follow you all the way to building a new market. But hey, he'll be a better, more informed Black man, able to start a family and, perhaps make better opportunities for his kids. I'm not talking about, trying to fight the ultimate race god at the end of the video game, sir. But anyways, Mike V, with regards to, what would you tell a young Mike V coming up right now with regards to future opportunities, little side gates to pass, whatever you could just riff off of the kinds of things that Kaiser went on. Go ahead, floor is yours.
I think the next emerging market is going to be the climate tech market. Carbon capture, renewable energies, wind, and a various amount of other energy storage container markets are going to be the next iteration of emerging tech. I just came from Kenya last week on a climate tech eco tour, looking at Africans break into the market on their own with their own scientists, with their own engineers, and they're outpacing that of African Americans right now. And so I think looking at these carbon capture or these renewable energy markets, these climate tech markets are going to be the industry to go into. And I think that AI is just going to help accelerate a lot of the data science and research that is required for it.
Sorry, I was muted. So, LAR, I want to ask you something about Neuralink, right? Because it's about adoption of this particular technology. This is kind of like a new frontier. I want to ask you, would you act, because Kaiser mentioned FDA approved, right? I think there's a person that's able to use his mind, quote unquote, to move a mouse, right? These things are not necessarily new, because, if you follow neuroscience, there have been things in this particular direction. But is this something that you would actually adopt? Would you put a chip in yourself? Would you let your kid put a chip in themselves? In other words, I want you to kind of forecast the adoption of this particular technology with Neuralink. It's kind of new right now, but we know how things go. 15 years from now, it might be a thing or it might not be a thing. What are your thoughts about this Neuralink thing, LAR?
No, I wouldn't do that. I mean, technology is great, but there comes a point where we use technology to enable us to be dumber. And when you stop doing certain things, it's not going to end well. We see how nowadays we have so much information on the phone and so much access to technology. But when it comes to actually doing simple things that you could actually just Google or watch a video and repeat, people still can't do it or won't do it. So do I need a chip in my head to make a mouse move? No, thank you. Would I have my kid do it? No, thank you. What I would ask is, if you have the ability to do that, I'm pretty sure you have the ability to track everything that's going on with the people that you didn't chipped. So I would rather keep my mind and my freedom for myself.
All right, so LAR is going to lead the new Luddite movement, the real human movement against the.
LAR's kids are going to be dusty and outcompeted by my kids.
Oh wow!
The Muslim kids, the Christian kids, or the atheist kids?
All of them. So let me see. I'm keeping track here. Nagone, right? You're still there, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool. So with regards to this tech field, right?
Mm-hmm.
You heard what Kaizo said. Kaizo dropped some things, and Mr. Mike talked about the new market, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with regards to an individual, which path to take, where to go, you talked about certain things that are unique in your particular trajectory. But how does the young Nagone out there situate themselves within all these things that we're talking about? This $250 billion in one day in Nvidia and the data centers and blah, blah, blah. Well, what is your advice to this person with regards to negotiating this?
If somebody's in school, I definitely would say if you're in school and you're looking at this tech market, it's going to be you're going to be looking at a lot of emerging markets. Of course, one thing I do know, just speaking right here, I know there are a lot of opportunities certainly for people to get into, especially for Black men in the sales. Definitely moving into to tech sales and so forth. That tends to be a very good ground floor for a lot of us. We tend to do very well, in the sales arena. But we're going to have to get more involved in the design and certainly very much on the development side. So I'm looking at a lot of our youth. Just like I'm talking with my grandson, I'm saying if you're going to go to school and you're going to go to college right now, I really want you to really think very heavily about getting into, getting a computer science degree. Because I think some of these other degrees, you might be, I don't know how they're going to turn so well for you, but computer science degree certainly, and get involved in programming. He definitely likes certain aspects of computing. He likes, or a lot of young kids like him who are gamers and stuff like that. They like programming. They like, cybersecurity and this kind of stuff is a big interest to them. So from the tech side, it's hard to say exactly which area you're going to get into, but point yourself into that direction, which is a little offshoot of STEM, of course, but look to put yourself in that direction. That's really where I'm coming from. I'm definitely biased towards it. So that's where my head is, and I'm trying to keep it kind of simple, in the sense of, this is where I think you're going to do very well, where you're going to make a lot of money, you're going to have a good job and so forth. But certainly from an entrepreneurial standpoint and building your own company and businesses and so forth are going to be pretty critical as well. So that's, hopefully I'm answering your question. Hopefully that's making a little sense to you there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You did indeed answer the question. You're saying, you're biased towards tech. You're pushing them in the tech direction. And before I get Dr. Thunder's input here regarding, and then we're going to start doing closing thoughts, starting with IC3. But Dr. Thunder, I want to hear regarding.
I know I just came in, but I haven't even spoken yet.
Yeah. I was about to get to you before I got to Dr. Thunder. So, shout out to you, Olga Cyrus. General thoughts then, given the fact that we're towards the end, and so I don't want to kind of shoehorn you into the particular kind of silo that we're in right now, but you've been listening. What are your general thoughts about what we've said? Just a general kind of a swath for everybody. Let me give that regarding what we've spoken about. We started talking about the fact that it's not an excuse you cannot be outcompeted by non-select, dusty asylum seekers out here. That these are not your problem. To the degree to which they are your problem, then you need to skill up. You need to go ahead and improve yourself with regards to skills and economic value and whatnot. And then we went into the emerging markets represented by what Nvidia is doing, the barriers to entry in the whole kind of venture capital / tech industry, and what should be done about it. Should there be complacency, and why Black men, generally speaking, don't seem to have the interest in this in terms of just simply talking about it, right? I don't hear no talk about market cap. It's a different kind of cap that they be talking about, and blah blah blah. But anyways, go ahead, give us your thoughts on everything you've heard so far.
Yeah, hello everybody. Hope everybody's doing well today. Yeah, in general, I mean, I've kind of been like seeing the topic, but let me just say what I have to say. I feel that as Black people or Black men, like we kind of focus on the extremes a lot, and that doesn't really let us focus down and say what can all of us do right now. Like for instance, like we're talking about AI on one side, and then I think that the other side of this video was like being electricians. So just looking at the AI side, I mean that's an advanced thing, but we don't even have the basic rights. Like a lot of Black men I know and I see that grew up on my street, none of them are really doing anything. Talk less of something like super advanced like AI. So even that eternal motivation to like get up and do something, it's not there, and we have to deal with why that is in the first place. Like even, and this is in America, where we have so many opportunities, so many amenities and everything, but still, it seems like as as a collective, we still find a way to be at the bottom. So we have to first figure out, get that motivation kicked up first. And I believe that one of the things that can help us get that motivation is just being responsible and like getting married. Like all these groups that come and go abroad, one of the first things they do is, yes, they have an idea, but before they start networking, before they start getting businesses and find a place to settle, they either get a wife, either already have a wife, or they get a wife immediately. And that just eliminates so many things. It eliminates distractions and just lets them focus on their goal. But over here, like we have this kind of eternal bachelor syndrome, that we're not really focused. We don't really get that focus that every other group stands from that. Because once you get that as a building block, which is marriage, then you start looking inside your community and say, okay, this is where I'm going to grow up. This is where my kids are going to grow up rather. And you start making efforts. Start getting involved in politics. Start getting involved in schools. All the like drugs and shooting, you along with other Black men that have that same mindset are going to start putting things into action to eliminate and reduce those things. And that's what we had in like the 70s, like let's say in our grandparents' generation. But for some reason, we didn't really carry that on, and we've seen a lot of the negatives of that come out today. Then in terms of the electrician and handyman side, I mean, that's good, but is that really going to elevate our status in America? Like if you look at the Hispanics, more especially Mexicans, of course they're doing better than us because something is better than nothing, but their social political rank is not really increasing based on that kind of work. But if you look at like Asians and Indians, like they're creating like for generations in the States, they created so many millionaires and billionaires because they get into tech, they get into more lucrative, more advanced kind of work. So, but for Black men, we need to start anything because we're not doing anything, whether it's handy blue collar or white collar. We got to start somewhere, and we don't have that motivation across the board. So once we start getting that motivation, once we start like getting that building block, which is marriage, because it all starts and ends there. If you don't get that marriage part right, you could be doing whatever you're doing, nothing's going to pan out. So I think we got to focus on that motivation and that psychology first before anything else. So that's what I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Motivation, getting the foundation right, the foundation for starting that family right. Get that right, and everything should kind of circle around that solid foundation and get you to the right spot. And when we talk about the electrician stuff, I'm talking about the kind of electricians that work for the electrical contractors that build these data centers that I also am a contractor for. And those guys make money. They make a lot of money, especially the ones that are able to be subcontractors where they own their own outfit. They're a subcontractor for a large contractor because the contract requires that typically because it has government funding and whatnot. But your point is well taken that those start from the bottom. That's why we put those there as a kind of a low hanging fruit. And it dovetails with what you said. You just got to do something, do something, do something. So, Dr. Thunder, okay, to the degree to which you want to divulge, what you're pushing your son towards or whatnot in general, I was just wondering, like, what are your thoughts about like what Nagon said about like the STEM thing? Are you pushing, anybody in that direction? I know pushing it's a strange word. Whatever form pushing takes over there. What are your thoughts in general about STEM and kids?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I want him to do something that he enjoys doing. So he's willing to put in the extra effort. And I think the extra effort is what's going to be the thing that separates him from other folks, regardless as to what the discipline is. We could do an analysis of, income based on the discipline that you pursue and what degrees you get and all of that kind of stuff. And that's great. That's not usually how that works. In parenting, that's not usually how that works, that you can get you a spreadsheet out and say, hey, you need to do these things because, these studies that I've been looking at, they suggest that you need to do these steps and then you'll be all right. So, I'm still we're still seeing what his interests are. And he has several interests, which is fine. He's 10. And even with the music stuff that we do, he wanted to do the same thing I do. He wanted to play saxophone. So, so we're doing that. He's in band, but he's also doing sports. And he's doing, and with sports, he's not just doing one sport because we don't know what he's going to necessarily be interested in, as far as what he excels at and whatnot. So basically he's doing football, basketball, baseball. He's left-handed, so he may have an advantage playing baseball. He seems to like baseball. Baseball season is about to start again, right? So he just finished basketball. So, he's doing all the usual stuff that a young kid does. He's a smart kid, and I think he could excel at anything that he enjoys doing. So, and he's he's extroverted. He has a social thing to him. So, and he enjoys communicating with folks. So I think a job where there was a heavy sales component, I think he would actually thrive in that circumstance. And so, yeah, there's lots of possibilities with him. He's both of his parents have been successful. And extended family on both sides have been, very, very successful. So, we expect him to do well, and he will be expected to do well. And of course, that's the thing that actually makes things work. Speaking of the marriage thing that Osiris brought up, yeah, this is a tough sort of topic because you have a lot of people that are just basically decided that they're not going to do the marriage thing because it's too risky and expensive. But I don't necessarily think that means that they won't be successful or necessarily will lack the motivation to be great at something. I do think that families are very important, and if you want to be fruitful and multiply, that the family structure is the way to do that, not the usual thing that we see in our community. And Adam, had a job. He was on his purpose, doing the will of God, as it were, by being on his purpose. And it wasn't until later that Eve showed up on the scene, and that was, so the order that Osiris is mentioning seems to be off. I think that the motivation has to come prior to marriage. But we can't really control that, because I think the motivation likely comes from having come from a good family, right? And having a certain kind of support and opportunity to make mistakes and explore what the interests are. And that's just not something that we have in abundance in our community. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is it. Well, I tend to agree with you there that a man should have motivation and be on their stuff, and I do not commiserate or understand the motivationless type people or have any particular advice for them. I'm out here trying to talk about market caps and stuff. So, speaking of that, we're going to start putting a cap on this, and I want to kind of give opportunity for kind of closing thoughts. So we're going to go like this. We're going to start IC3, Mike V. I'm going to kind of go on from there, but Mr. IC3, again, thank you for hopping on. It's been a while, and it's always appreciated. And yes, we do understand that you're out here to build your own ecosystem, and you're going fearlessly to that house, even though you understand that this house or this market is indeed racist. But you're going to go there, put your nose down, understand what you need to understand, fight what you need to fight in order to create your own. But what are your closing thoughts? Anything else you want to add? Put a capstone on your contribution, sir.
Yes, I believe that even the ancients have always told us about death and resurrection. So how does death and resurrection apply to markets, the market caps and business and so on, and family? I would share with you my viewpoint, and that is I reached in more than one business or market, I excelled and reached the top and hit the glass ceilings. I hit the glass ceiling, about 4 glass ceilings in all different markets. I kept hitting my head. I think, what's going on here? And then it dawned on me, having my wife and children, and I thought, how am I going to it's trauma? How am I going to tell my family, my wife, my children about this glass ceiling? They can't understand it. And I thought, I can't keep trying. I'm not going to go for another glass ceiling. So if you decide to opt out of hitting your head against glass ceilings, then what do you tell your child? And so when you're opting out, then you start winding down to a simpler life. And you want your children to be well motivated, to have that interest, to have that drive to maximize what they can do, but yet you got to tell them about this glass ceiling. So it's like a catch-22 situation. So I opted to tell my children the truth and why I do what I do in the way that I do it, and saying, look, that's how it is. That's how the world works, and I'm going to give you whatever I can, and you've got to go out there and understand that you're in a hostile situation. So go out there and understand that it's hostile, and do what you've got to do. Maximize yourself in a hostile situation. So so they're long term. So obviously they're questioning me, but wait a minute, or even the family, all the family saying, but you've done so many great. What's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? What are you doing? Why do you could get so many jobs and so on, and businesses. Why aren't you doing this? And you can't really explain because they're not going to hear. Your wife's not going to hear. The children are not going to hear. So all you could do is you keep quiet and stack up all the information, all the knowledge you can, in a kind of bank, and keep quiet until they ask the question. When they come across a problem and they decide to ask you, then you say, then you have the answer. Because it's only at that point when your family or your wife or your children ask the question, are they ready to receive the distasteful truth. So you just have to leave them and just keep quiet, but make sure you know the question's going to come because you've been through it. You know the experience. You've seen it before, and you know that they're going to come up against these problems. Yeah. So all you do, just make sure that you have all the answers for when they hit that it's a mini glass ceiling before they get onto the bigger one. I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. Death and resurrection, maximizing yourself within a hostile environment, keeping the information for your progeny. How's that sound? That's a nice synopsis. I think it sounds good, if I may say so myself. Now, Mike V, put a capstone, final thoughts on this whole conversation, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I think overall, fourth industrialization, emerging markets are definitely here to stay, and I think that you don't necessarily need a PhD or even a master's degree to be in these markets. You can go to several cert sites, some of these quick learn sites, and get a nano degree that they call it now, 6 months of upskilling, and you can be inside these markets just as competitive with the rest of the degree holders. And so we've heard Ginny Ramatri from former CEO of IBM. We've heard from the CEO of Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, also say that they're not even looking at degrees anymore. We saw several states in the United States waive the degree requirement at the state and federal level. They're not going to look at bachelor's degrees anymore. They're going to look at skills. And so now is the time to upskill and actually get inside these emerging markets. And I think social networking, social capital is going to be the new capital that is going to be required to be a part of these emerging markets. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Mike V. Always a pleasure. And now moving on to Nagone. And Nagone, I believe you're first time on here, and so that's good. Thanks for coming through. Appreciated your contribution and from personal experience and whatnot in this tech space. Go ahead and give us your final thoughts, sir.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Emerging markets are definitely where just that's how this game is evolving. Certainly, you're not going to necessarily need to have degrees to really get more into it. I do think if you are going to get a degree and you're going to move into this market, make sure it's specialized, and you're going to certainly can move relatively high with that. But it's a wide open space for us, very much so. We have to really press and put a lot more effort into getting in, and that's on all sides. That's certainly I would have to say, wow, it's just not from literally from your networking all the way up to systems architecture and so forth, owning businesses. There's a lot that's going to go into that's going into this, and this thing is going to continually grow and expand, and we've got to be in it at pretty much at where the ground floor is. I would just talk with Mike and these guys. They just came back from Africa, and they're looking at just the micro mobility and how that is growing and how tech is going to be playing into that. So there's the how this thing is going to expand and grow. It's going to move in ways that maybe we're not going to be able to fully see all the way as it continues to expand. So there's a lot out here. I like to leave things always on a positive. So let's just continue to work, build. There is opportunity. Yes, you're not going to have huge degrees to get in. These big degrees and all that to get into this. So So there will be some less barriers to entry, but we still will see some. But that's not anything that should stop us. We just have to continually work and look how to beat that and overcome that. But it's a great conversation. I think this is something that we have to have. We need to talk about this routinely and really press our youngsters more in this area. And that's really what I have to say. I'm a father. I have kids, grandchildren, and the same deal, and pushing them that way. And this is the wave of the future. We're not gonna. Let's put it like this: you're not going to be able to kind of get around. It's coming at you. So it's going to be here, and we've got to be in it. So anyway, that's really about it. I listen. I really appreciate you letting me up. I'm glad to be invited here, and I'm glad to put my input in and listen. And thank you very much for your time today. Anyway,
No problem. Nagon. Hashtag don't get tore out the frame. That's I like when you say that.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, Oga Cyrus, what are your closing thoughts on this matter, sir?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, for me, I believe that every black man has to just get up and do better. And if you're doing good, do more. Like for those brothers who are like white collar involved in tech, that's good. I mean, but it's still so much stuff we can even do in that. Network with more brothers, talk to some high schoolers, network with those in college, even side branch out to other things, because I mean we know how the politics runs in a lot of these tech jobs. Like any minute now, you could be walking on the other side of the door. So while you're there and making that money, invest in some basic things like gas stations, laundromats, lawn care, some other stuff, so that in case of any incasity, you're going to be okay. And again, we have to get involved in not just in business, religion, not just in religion, politics. We got to do the whole thing. No matter how much we're giving into whatever we're doing, we have to do much, 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 much more. And once we start giving effort, just basic effort. We don't have to. I think you guys talked about emerging markets earlier, but it's so much opportunity in the hoods that we came out from. So many boarded up buildings, so much things that can be done even there. So it's really opportunity at every corner. And not only we have to see that, we have to believe in that. And once we could start making those changes, that things will start eventually getting better. So that's all I have to say.
Yes, sir. From the corner stores to the churches to the banks to the politics. Yes, he says we got to do it all. So, Mr. LAR, what are your closing thoughts on this? We went through the whole thing. We talked about the migrants coming in doing shoddy work. You hire them. Maybe you're that guy who got your particular certifications and you hire these people, but maybe they're not as good. Some might say you're a little racist there, LAR, but tongue in cheek. But go ahead, give us your closing thoughts.
I would say let's be concerned about the next wave also, because what happens is we get behind the curve instead of ahead of the curve. So now people are jumping on tech, but let's be honest, you might be 20, 30 years late. So what's the next part? Whether it's a branch off of tech. You remember when people used to say you should invest in fiber optics, but that was like 20 years ago. And I saw a comment with Elon Musk talking about how people should think, entrepreneurs should think about refining lithium because it's like printing money. Now, ironically, the issue would be you're going to probably have to, who has the capital to do that? Who has the connections to be able to get lithium like that and refine it like that? When we talk about even the illegal immigrants, and they're not going to be able to do that. So a lot of times using crypto as a reference, certain people started moving towards that direction because it was a new wave that people weren't not necessarily privy to, but people weren't paying attention to. So at some point, if you're seeing how the society's changing and everything is evolving, you're gonna have to make an adjustment, but you also have to look ahead and not just look at what's in front of you. So that's where I'll leave it.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, speaking of crypto, I actually was talking to Solo yesterday. We're talking on the phone. Uh, Bitcoin is in the $50,000 range right now, 50 something. It's got the 5 handle on it. The previous all-time high was like 60,000. So Solana has gone like 300% in the last year. Well, anyway, the bags are bagging, and me and Solo were talking about it amongst other things. Shout out to Solo, shout out to the crypto bags. If you got one, good for you. Now, Kaizo, give us your closing thoughts on this as we wrap this up.
Yeah, I say that to sort of it's kind of interesting. LAR came in, he gave a point which is true, but also a little bit perhaps nihilistic. Yeah, everything he said is correct. Like, okay, I don't think we're late to be getting into these markets, right? Like Mike V kind of pointed out that there's some potentials in carbon capture. You don't have to be like the research scientist in nanotech looking into nanomaterials for capturing carbon. No, you don't have to do that. What you can do is, hey, you're a black man. Hey, Ike. Reach out to him, ask him which countries have land, how much they cost to rent. Don't bother buying it, right? Go and start talking. I'm talking about emerging markets, right? Right now we have the COP28 meeting by United Nations, as well as European Union. They're funding all this green movement thing. That is the right now and the future, because it's money there, right? There's already a market that exists. Companies that produce an excess amount of carbon over a certain range will have to buy, more or less pay your company that's growing things in your land in Africa in order for them to continue polluting, right? So this is a very, very new market that exists. This country's already paying it. Even Ghana has recently introduced carbon tax levies, right? So point I'm trying to make here is you can literally go there, go to Ghana, go to Kenya, whatever it is, rent some land, grow some stuff. Doesn't matter what. If you grow some food product, perhaps you can even sell that too and make double the income and get yourself into the market. You don't have to only think of the market from the so-called glass ceiling perspective. Oh, this is too difficult to get into. There's many different ways to get into these fields. And why? Because it's diversity of people, right? Not everybody's a techie. In fact, techies tend to be the least paid for the most work in these sort of platforms. Just I say that's the main thing. Understand the emerging markets, get yourself into there and do your research and believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself. Yes, you don't have to be a house Negro, he says. He says you can be a field Negro. And this is a very salient point, actually, regarding emerging markets, because you see, to really crack make big money out here at the tip of the spear, let's say in Silicon Valley or something, or in the United States in general, you need to be at the tip of the spear in terms of technology. You need to create some kind of a new thing, or break some kind of new efficiency that you can then support some other industry with, and so on and so forth. However, in emerging markets, right? Let's just take Africa, for example. These are places where you can still become a billionaire by just doing agriculture. Literally buying land, planting some stuff, doing some minimal processing, and you push the right buttons. In 20 years, you're the next family that lasts for the next 200 years. Because as a matter of fact, a lot of those families over there are in the agriculture / commodity space. Dangote doing rice and cement. He's the richest black man in the world, right? With rice and cement. Okay. So over there in that end of the world, you don't have to be doing tip of the spear type stuff. Like, what I'm going to have to create the next app or the next whatever to come up with the whatever, and with my crypto and my AI and blockchain. It's like, no, you can do it. You can get it out the mud, as they say, Dr. Thunder. So, Dr. Thunder, you have the dubious honor of closing us out today.
Dubious honor.
Yeah, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Yeah, I don't really it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think skilling up is important. I think being aware of the technology that's being utilized in your field, in your discipline, being out in front of whatever's being used, predicting what the next thing is going to be, embracing AI rather than treating it as if it's sort of like end of the world, or just seeing it as a negative thing. There's a lot of ways that academics are utilizing AI. I mean, I think initially there was a lot of fear about it because it's basically created a situation where a student will be able to write a paper with proper citation and everything by giving a command rather than by having to actually do the work. And it's very difficult, if not impossible, to determine if this is phony or not. I mean, you could look at the style of the writing, but all of that would be not based on any sort of objectivity. It would just be you making a judgment call, and you can't really expel a student or tell them they have to do the assignment over based on a hunch. AI does a good job of making sure that it says things in a way that don't appear to be, that aren't plagiarized. So you have a very low percentage of plagiarizing, and yeah, it's so I think a lot of folks in at my institution, there were a lot of emails going around where people wanted to meet and have these conversations and stuff about AI initially. And then I started to see that those meetings are kind of less and less, and people are just sort of, well, this is what it's going to be, and, do what you have to do. AI is being used also to write music now, and a lot of people were concerned about that, but there's actually been technology involved in doing many of the sort of more tedious aspects of writing. We didn't call it AI, but it's basically using existing writing, or is using existing arranging and writing techniques to basically realize a composition. So you give it the composition, you say, okay, this section I want it to be, here's the instrumentation, and here's the kind of voicing that I want, or the kind of harmony that I want. Here are the chords, you do the work. So that's something that's actually existed for a long time. But I think people are, they're thinking that this is going to be some sort of end of the world. I don't think so. And the thing is that music is really more about building a community than it is about, here, look, I can write this composition and it has all these bells and whistles to it. It's less about that, and nobody cares what a machine thinks. So you always have that as an advantage. So anyhow, even while utilizing technology in whatever your discipline is, just try to be out front, and I think it'll work out. It'll be better off than, we'll all be better off that way. Now, with respect to marriage, I just wanted to mention this again. And look, this space is sort of divided between people that are hardcore against marriage, and they cite really good reasons for being anti-marriage. And then folks that are pro-marriage. And often is the case that people that are married, it seems to be they're frowned upon for getting involved in certain kinds of discussions. It seems to me that those that are successfully married and that are building and growing and developing and flourishing due to that marriage, it seems like their opinion about marriage, relationships, finding somebody that's suitable would be more valuable than folks that in general have sworn it off. That's just an opinion, and you can criticize that opinion if you like, but it seems like folks that know better are less involved in some of the more important conversations that single people are having. So, and parenting is about that. That's what parenting is about, right? So, if you have a good family structure, good parents, if you got good folks on both sides of the family, then you can have these sort of conversations. An uncle can have a conversation with you, about his situation. Your father can have this conversation with you and sort of pull your coat. So anyhow, skill up, get it happening, and listen to people that know better than you.
Listen, learn from the mistakes of others, learn from the experience of others, learn from the tutelage of good tutors. Toodaloo. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been another great episode. I think this one, how long did we go, Doctor? This is an extra 2.5 hours. Not too bad. Typically we go like an hour and a half, 2 max, but I guess this was a good one. Shout out to the super chatters. Yes, sir. And with that, we are out, and we should, I think, be able to pull off Getting Ish Done on Wednesday. Okay, Getting Ish Done. We're going to continue the conversation on things such as pulling yourself up by your boot. We're going to be bootstrap bros, Dr. Thunder, on Getting Ish Done. And next week on Dr. Thunder's channel, we're going to come back again. Highest level conversation on the most relevant topics in this space, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. Case closed. Thank you very much. Peace out.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what's a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil lurking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, could either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come get it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come get it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these circumstances, evil